Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Takahiro Shimojima from Weekend. So, uh, first of all, I would like to thank organizers for inviting me here. So today I will talk on the imaging pneumaticity wave by laser photo emission electron microscopy. So here is the collaborators, and this work was already published in science paper. So if you are interested in this talk, please also refer to this paper. And as you know, the strongly correlated electrons can exhibit self-organization behavior as seen by the atomic scale stripes in copper oxide superconductors and also metallic domains in manganese oxides and vanadium dimers in vanadium oxides. And also the ion-based superconductors show the inhomogeneous spatial distribution of electrons of the insulating phase and the superconducting phase. So in this talk, I would like to show another example of the self-organized electrons in ion-based superconductors. So these observations of the self-organization of electrons is important for understanding the nature of bulk property and ordered phases. So this is the contents of my talk. First, I would like to introduce the electronic pneumaticity in ion-based superconductance and also the laser photoemission electron microscopy. And third, I will show our results of nanoscale mapping of orbital polarization for ion selenide and phosphorus top barium 122 system. And finally, I will discuss about the temperature dependence and the real space picture. Okay, as you know, the electronic pneumaticity in ion-based superconductors appears in this yellow region of the phase diagram. So there is a structural phase transition at Ts and antiferromagnetic order at Tn, and the superconductivity appears here. And at high temperature of the parent materials, the lattice and the electrons show the fourfold symmetry. But below Ts or Tn, the system shows the anisotropy. The anisotropy in the electrons can be defined in the momentum space. Here is a schematic band structure of ion-based superconductors. At high temperature, the YZ and XZ orbital bands shows same structure, but at pneumatic state, these two bands shows energy shift. At gamma point, XZ has higher energy, and at zone corner, the YZ has higher energy. And this orbital polarization, sign of the orbital polarization is common to ion selenide and barium 122 systems. And here is the temperature dependence of the order parameters in lattice and electrons in the case of ion selenide. The phase transition, pneumatic phase transition temperature is 90 Kelvin, and the lattice parameter shows this kind of increase, and also the energy difference in the YZ and XZ orbital bands shows a similar evolution. So these are similar behaviors in lattice and electrons indicates the strong coupling between them. So, however, we don't know about the real space picture. The order parameter may show the coupling between crystal lattice and electrons, but we don't know about the electronic pattern. And the previous polarized optical microscopy reported the twin domains of micrometer orders. As you can see, there are vertical and horizontal lines, and these lines are interpreted by this picture. So here is 4 kinds of orthorhombic lattice domains, and this domain structure can be also detected by STM. So this line is a boundary of the orthorhombic domains, and this boundary is known to be very sharp. Its width is around 5 nanometer. And as you can see, across this orthorhombic boundary, this electron distribution is rotated by 90 degrees. So this is okay. So this is certainly the orthorhombic domain boundaries. However, we don't know about the spatial distribution of the polarization. So in order to investigate this, we focus on the laser beam, laser photoemission electron microscopy. So in this measurement, we use the laser which has a energy just above the material's work function. So we can observe the density of states just near the FEM level and the gamma point. So we can map out the electrons near the FEM level in the real space. So in ion-based superconductors at high temperatures, the XZ and YZ density of states are equivalent, but in the nematic state, these two show the difference near the FEM level. Based on this picture, we would like to use the linear dichroism method for the pure measurement. So this linear dichroism LD is usually done by like that. So we can take 2 images by using the linear polarized laser P and S. Then by taking difference between them, we can emphasize the contrast of the images. So in the case of the nematic state, we can separately detect the XZ orbitals by P-polarized laser due to the selection rule of ALPS, and also we can detect the YZ density of states by using S-polarized laser. So this difference XZ and YZ corresponds to the order parameter of the nematic order. So we can map out the orbital polarization in real space. So here is the examples of the these LD images. So this case, we have 2 kinds of domains. One is the XZ domain, which has a XZ orbital higher than the YZ, and but the orthorhombic lattice is 90 degrees rotated. So in this case, the orbital is also 90 degrees rotated. So the sign of the LD signal is plus and minus. So we will observe the contrast. On the other hand, in this case, if we have large orthorhombic domains, but there are 2 types of orbitals, XZ and YZ. So in this case, we have plus and minus signals, so there is a contrast. And by using this method, we would like to clarify the special pattern of nematic electrons. So in this work, we use the linear dichroism laser beam on representative ion-based superconductors of iron selenide and phosphorus top value 1 to 2. And we will visualize the spatial distribution of the orbital polarization. Okay, this is experimental, and this laser beam systems was constructed at ISSP, University of Tokyo. So we use CW UV laser, and electrons come out from the samples. Then we will detect the electrons in the two-dimensional detectors through the aberration correctors and the electron analyzer. And this is experimental conditions. So in this work, we set the spatial resolution to the 90 nanometer, and just best spatial resolution is 3 nanometer, and high vacuum and the temperature, wide range of temperature, and linear polarized laser was used, and very high quality of single crystals were provided by Kasahara sensei at Okayama University and Nakajima sensei at Osaka University. Okay, now I move on to the experimental results. So before the experiments, we simply expected this kind of LED patterns, which has a micrometer or tens of micrometer scales as similar to the orthorhombic domains as reported by this paper. But in reality, we observe such complicated small pattern of the nematic electrons. So this data shows two characteristic scales. One is domains of 100 micrometer size, and this may be this likely corresponds to the orthorhombic domain size. And in addition, we observe very tiny stripes, which has a period from 400 nanometer to 1.4 micrometer, depending on the sample positions. And this domains is defined by this white bars, which is a boundary between the stripes, the 90 degrees rotated stripes. And okay, so now we move on to the details of these nanometer stripes. Okay, so this panel shows the LED image of phosphorus top 1 to 2 materials, and now we closely look at this region 1 and 2. And this panel shows the line profile of these selected images, and we can see that the rectangle and the sinusoidal wave like this. Then we also found that this period is shorter for the right part. Okay, in the region 2, we can observe the very simple sinusoidal waves with small amplitude. So depending on the sample positions, we observe the different types of the wave shape. So all of these observations we named the nematicity wave. But now we note that this nematicity wave is much smaller than the orthorhombic domains. So now we would like to consider the domain structure just only for the electrons. So that is a nematic domain wall picture. So according to the Ginzburg-Lambda theory, the nematic domain wall can be expressed by this formula. So please look at this picture, and now we have many nematic domain walls like this, and these domain walls are separate due to the repulsion between them. And this parameter D is the amplitude of the nematic domain walls, and Guzai nematic is the coherence length showing the width of the domain walls. And now we can also define the interval of the domain walls S. If the S is much larger than the Guzai, we will observe the rectangle shape in the LD images. And if S is comparable to the Guzai, signal should be a sinusoidal wave, and we will have a very large amplitude due to the overlapping of the slope of the domain walls. And finally, if we have a smaller S, the sinusoidal wave will have a very small amplitude. So by using this model, we can explain such complicated position dependence of the nematicity wave. So this is a fitting result. This green curve is a fitting function based on this picture, and in this region 1, we can use this picture. And here, the sinusoidal wave with large amplitude can be understood by this panel 2. And this one, this sinusoidal wave with smaller amplitude should correspond to this one. So the important thing is that we could reproduce this data by assuming only two parameters, Guzai and D. So these parameters are material dependent. Before discussing these results, we should mention about the contribution from the spatial resolution of this measurement. So this data shows a spatial resolution, and for estimating the spatial resolution, we measure the impurity on the samples. So this black dots are line profile, and by assuming the rectangular shape for the impurities, we can estimate the upper limit of the spatial resolutions. So in this case, the 90 nanometer is the upper limit. So by assuming the 90 nanometer as a spatial resolution, we can simulate the rectangle shape. So this red curve is the broadened rectangle shape due to the spatial resolution in this work. But as you can see, this sinusoidal data is different from the red curve. So because of these estimations, we can say that this sinusoidal wave is intrinsic shape, not coming from the spatial resolution. Okay, so now we can believe that this large desired value is intrinsic. So similarly, we perform the LDP measurement, ion selenide also. Then we analyze the data and we obtain these parameters. So we again obtain the mesoscopic design parameters. So based on these results, we can say that the complicated nematicity wave can be explained by the nematic domain walls. And the origin of the mesoscopic design value coherence length is still open questions. So we need further theoretical study for this, for explaining these results. Then now I move on to the temperature dependence. So here is the temperature dependence of the nematicity wave from low temperature to higher temperature. So in the phase diagrams, now we are looking at this line from low to high temperature. Then below TS, we observe the clear stripes, but just above TS or TN, the sign of the stripes suddenly changes, and also its amplitude is suppressed. After that, by increasing the temperature, this peak intensity disappears above T star. So to see this more clearly, we can look at the line profiles of this data. From low temperature, its amplitude decreases, and above the nematic transition temperatures, we see the sign change. But the period of the stripes is the same. And at high temperature, we further observe the suppression. And this panel F shows the parameter D, that is the amplitude of the nematic domain wall. And this panel shows that the stripes appears just below the T star, and it shows a sign change, and its amplitude rapidly increases. So we also performed the similar measurement for the ion selenide, and in this case we found more simple results. We just observe the suppression of the stripes across TS, and the amplitude also decreases in this panel, and we observe the clear suppression as a second order phase transition. So these data show that the temperature dependence of the nematicity wave is consistent with the bulk electronic properties of these materials. So finally, I would like to discuss about the real space picture, and the previous STM measurement reported that the width of the orthorhombic
You have 5
domain
minutes.
boundary is okay, thank you. And this is very sharp. So this means that the order parameter of crystal lattice shows a very steep change like this. But in contrast, in electron systems, we now observe the very long scale domain walls. So order parameter has very long scales for the electrons. So the nematic order parameter of electrons is difficult to be changed. So this means that the electrons has a high stiffness against the change of the order parameter in real space. We think that these results indicate the new effect of electron correlation in ion-based superconductors. And for the temperature dependence, we observe the schematicity wave below T star for the 1 to 2 system. So in this green regions, the lattice is totally tetragonal and the electrons shows the nematicity. So this picture shows the LD patterns coming from the orbital polarizations of YZ and XZ electrons, and in this case the lattice is tetragonal. But I expect that there are some local distortions in the tetragonal lattice, so such distortion can trigger such electronic orbital polarization. Below Tn, we observe the sign change of the strike patterns. And in this case, the lattice is orthorhombic and the electrons are nematic. And now we can discuss two kinds of real space pictures depending on the domain boundaries. So in this case, we consider that the position of the domain boundary for lattice and electrons are not the same. So in this case, we have large single orthorhombic domains, and we observe the polarization change in these crystal domains. And this case, we consider the correspondence between the domain boundaries of crystal lattice and electrons. So in this case, we always observe the XZ polarized electronic states. But now we cannot conclude the picture because there is no previous report showing the nanoscale orthorhombic domains. So it will be future study. Okay, in summary, we performed the LD imaging by laser beam or ion selenide under 1 to 2 system, and we found the nematicity wave with a wavelength longer than 500 nanometers. So its possible explanation may be a nematic domain loss, and the important indication is its mesoscopic coherence length. So these data may indicate the new electronic correlation effect in ion-based superconductors. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. We have time only for maybe 1-2 very short questions. May I ask a question? Did you try to apply mechanical or magnetic detwinning to see how the domain structure changes?
Yeah, that's a very important point. So we didn't apply the such external field yet, but it will change the strike pattern, I guess. So I will try to such experiment in the near future.
Okay.